All right, man. We are here on the first episode of the Oracle Insurance Podcast, man. I was just saying, eventually, hopefully, we'll come up with some nice branding, a good name for it. We got talked about having a whole LED sign on here, the whole works and everything. But man, Will, I'm so excited to sit down with you and just to talk about what is going on nowadays with insurance, what our company does to help people. And so again, like I said, we're here with Oracle Insurance. My name is Luke Relfs, and I just started here really a couple days ago, man. And I'll let Will tell the story here soon of how we met and just a little bit about his background and all of that. But super excited to help us here at Oracle just kind of get things going on the social media side, man, doing this podcast, pumping out some content on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff, man. So Will, tell me a little bit about this company, about yourself, about how things started here at Oracle, because we know it wasn't always Oracle. You were filling me in weeks ago when we met. So just tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey of insurance and kind of what's brought you here in Oracle to what it is today.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. First of all, welcome to the team, man. We're super excited to have you on here. So Luke, I remember when we met, meeting for coffee at our little Bible study at Ivy. I just always loved your passion and your excitement that you bring. So we're excited to have you on the team. So
thank you.
It's going to be fun. But yeah, and taking this thing off, it's just, I'm excited to get content out there. Insurance is pretty boring traditionally. So, but throughout my 25 years in insurance, we've seen some claims that people are like, man, how's that covered? Or what covers that in these certain situations? So I'm excited to bring a fresh outlook on insurance on how we can help people make sure that those crazy things that they may not know about, that they got them taken care of. So, but yeah, I was a captive agent. So I was with one carrier, almost 20 years ago. And, where Oracle came to be, being a captive carrier, you don't have a lot of options for people. You got one carrier, so you really work for that carrier, and that's how, all you got to offer. So when we started, Oracle Insurance was just an independent insurance agency. We're just guides for people to help guide them through all the choices. So the difference really is we work for our client and not for the carrier, because we're not tied to one carrier. So we can go out to the market, guide them through what's the best options, what's the best products that they need, and the best carriers. And we do that annually with them to make sure we keep up to date with their ever-changing needs. So, but that's kind of how it came to be. Oracle, I got from the Matrix, actually, from the Oracle and the Matrix, because she looked to the future to see what was coming. And that's really what we do in insurance. We sit down with people. If we had a crystal ball, this thing would be a lot easier to figure out what they need, because we would see what's coming, but we can't. So we have to just prepare and let people know what can happen to them, and just guide them through what coverages they need to get. And we just got to, fortunately have put together just an awesome team of people. Our goal is to be the calm in their storm from Matthew 8. And with that, we just want to be fellowship focused, get to know our clients, really get to, make them feel like family here, because that's what we feel like as a team. Be a unified team, so we all work together to make sure and just take care of the client. We'd like to love everybody, just like Jesus tells us to do, is just pour love on everybody. So everybody's got a storm every day. We don't take that personally. We just want to make sure and help them out so they can have peace at night on that. And just to lead by how we live. Our goal is to make sure that people want to follow us because we're leading the right kind of life, and we don't do that every day perfectly, but we're all in process. So that's kind of our focus. And that's kind of how everything came to be. And we've been in business about 12 years, have a bunch of great carriers. And we just love helping people find and guide them through all the different insurance options they have.
Nice, man. So cool. And so you talked about it a little bit, but really just specify for people as well, what is the difference between what we do here at Oracle versus maybe a giant like Allstate or State Farm or whatnot? Explain that a bit.
Yeah. So, really the main difference would be, if you call one of those big captives that you see commercials for all the time during the Super Bowl game, the great marketing and everything there. But, really when you call one of those carriers, that's all they have to offer you. Man, and insurance is changing like crazy right now, with all the things going on in inflation and prices of everything, supply and demand issues. So all that stuff comes into play. So when we go to market, we go to a bunch of different carriers, a bunch of A-rated carriers, and we work with them daily so we can help guide people, consult with people, and say, hey, this carrier, great pricing, but claims may not be the best. So we're not going to make that choice for them. We're just going to help make sure that they understand all the differences between them. And with that, we can just help guide them. And then the biggest thing for us is every year we are going to look at their policies that they have with them. First of all, make sure they're up to date, make sure that everything's covered that maybe changed in that year. But if premiums change, which right now everybody's premiums are changing, it's crazy. But every year we sit down and say, hey, you're still in the best spot, or hey, there may be a better option for you. So that's kind of the difference between us and the big box stores or the 1-800 far away carriers that you got to dial somebody. Another thing is, man, we're like I said, we're fellowship focused here. So you call here, you're going to get the same people on the phone every time, and everybody, they better say, hey, I'm going to willing to help, or I'm going to go help find an answer for you. So that's what we focus on here, is just making sure and just really getting to know people and take care of them.
Awesome, man. That's so good. That's part of why I love being here. Even within a couple of days, I was like, man, the values of this place, the way that I see you and the people that are working here really striving to help people out. And that's the name of the game, man. My dad talks about it all the time. Is just how do we provide value for people, right? How do we help people? Right. That's what we hope we can bring as far as even talking about what we're talking about. So we started getting into it a little bit, but tell me, man, COVID just happened a couple years ago, all kinds of things. I know a note of yours as well is just the price of vehicles is so different nowadays, obviously, than it was 15, 20 years ago. So what are some of the key things that are driving insurance premiums up right now? Yeah,
totally. I mean, COVID, we're all still feeling effects from that in some way. So during the COVID pandemic experience, whatever you want to call it, man, one thing that's never happened really in history is the values of cars have increased. And that's like, what, they always depreciate. They always say when you buy a new car, it depreciates $5,000 once you drive it off the lot, right? Well, that wasn't happening.
Wow.
So if you think about it, insurance companies, they have to, the actuaries, the guys in the back that are figuring out the rates, and the real good guys at math, right? They're figuring out, hey, what is our probability of loss on this car? Well, when they say, for example, that car was $30,000 and usually depreciated every year in value, so that's how they're figuring out their premiums, man, they were going up. And then there would be a total loss claim to where their car's totaled out and they're paying out way more money than they thought. If you think about parts last year went up 17% in body shops. Well, this year they're already up another 17%. So that's 34% higher of what they're paying out to fix a car. So that's one thing. And then home values, everybody knows, man, home values just skyrocketed. Supply and demand was down. Everybody was buying. Rates were cheap at the time. So people were buying houses. Well, that drove up the market values of cost, drove up, now with the COVID supply and demand issues, all the things that go into a house and a car skyrocketed. Roofing, metal, plastics, anything in their house made out of those things. So a storm would happen, damage a house. Well, now that claim that they thought was going to be this amount was, 25% higher. So that's, another thing that's driving rates. Another thing that people don't, you think with all this technology going into cars, I mean, cars can drive themselves now, they can park themselves, which is crazy to me. I still can't trust that stuff. But all that technology is great, but it's super expensive. A bumper used to be a bumper. Now a bumper's got cameras, sensors, all this technology in it. So you have a front end collision. That bumper that used to be $400 because it was just a bumper is now $2,500 because now it's got all that technology in it. So another thing in the auto market is, that you don't think about is like airbags. Yeah. Airbags are a great safety thing, but my son and I were hit in our Suburban one time. 12 airbags went off.
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
So even before they fixed a dent on our car, airbags run about $2,000 to $3,000 a piece to repair. So, man, you got 10 airbags go off because we had a Suburban, so a ton of them.
Yeah.
I mean, right there, that's $20,000 to $30,000 just to fix the airbags, which that's totaling cars out quicker. So that means the carriers are paying out a bigger amount than just maybe half that. So technology is great. Safety things are great, but everything comes with a price. So that's the downside. Yep.
Man, gosh, there's so much stuff going on. It's like even sitting here as we're doing this, I'm learning plenty about insurance. I told you too. I was like, hey, I'm certainly not the Mr. Insurance Guru over here, so I'm loving this. Just even learning more about it myself. But something was interesting even as I was checking over what we were going to talk about for today. So insurance companies need insurance as well, weird? Right? So tell me a little bit about how that works and why that's a factor in what's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of things, come into that, we look at frequency of claims and severity of claims. So, frequency is how many claims, how often they happen, right? Yeah. Traditionally, back, I remember when I started, I used to be with Allstate, and when I started with them over 20 years ago, claims, a catastrophe claim, which is a big claim that comes through an area and you got massive losses across the board. Those would happen once every 3 years, once every 5 years. Now they happen a lot more often, maybe once a year, once every couple of years. So that frequency drives it up. Car accidents, another thing. People sat at home for 2 years because they couldn't go anywhere, and they were on their phones, on their technology. Well, now they're still on their phones, on their technology, but now they're behind the wheel driving to work, so they're distracted. So that's also driving frequency up because people are so distracted. People are so rushed because that's just how we live here in America.
Right.
So that makes a big difference. But and then as for looking at how carriers have insurance. So all that goes into that. Carriers go and they get reinsurance. So like a carrier for major say a major storm hits, and once it hits a certain number, that's where their reinsurance carrier comes in. Well, the insurance carriers' insurance, their premiums have doubled, plus their deductibles have increased a bunch. So that means the carrier that you may have your insurance with is having to spend more on its insurance and spend more on its out of pocket if there is a major catastrophe like that. So it's something that people don't think about, but it all comes into play. Even like carriers have huge data warehouses now that there's so much done online. They have to have these huge storage facilities to maintain all that data. I was out at Progressive's out in Cleveland one time, and it's insane the amount of money they have to spend, because if their website went down for a while, it could mean catastrophic things to Progressive, and that's a huge company. So every carrier's got to have a lot of technology on their side just to maintain their websites and policies and all that stuff. So it comes into play.
Gotcha. So even with that, with all the different things that we're talking about so far, what are some of the policy changes and options that are going to be better, different, how, and we'll move into a little bit as well here in a second, how are we really helping people? So kind of cover the policy changes and options for us as far as what's going on.
Well, as all these market conditions have come into insurance, carriers are looking at different ways to cover new things. There's like new technology things that, as well as, for discounts, like water sensors that have came out with all this technology for smart home stuff, which is great. Security options like with the Ring and all that stuff. But yeah, and then water sensors, and there's just all kinds of things that you can put in your home for a smart home, temperature sensor, fire sensor. So that all can help. So those are things, but one thing that people probably aren't keeping up. 20 years ago, the common insurance coverage for auto insurance was $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident, and $100,000 for property damage. What that means, if you get in an accident and somebody gets hurt, they're going to be covered for up to $100,000 in bodily injury, $300,000 total for the accident. So if there's 5 people hurt, they all got to split that $300,000. But then the property damage side, most people have $100,000 in coverage, which 20 years ago was great. I mean, the average car price 20 years ago was a little under $22,000. The average car price today is about $46,000.
Yeah.
But you look at some of these Suburbans, you ask anybody that's got a truck, and they're like, man, what I paid for a truck 10 years ago compared to now, there's $100,000 for a Suburban.
Yeah.
So if you only have that limit, 20 years ago, that was probably okay.
Yeah.
Today, those are things that people we need really start thinking about how the market has changed just in the last 3 years on how we really need to update people's insurance, and the cost on that is minimal. I mean, dollars a month, that's it. So keeping people's insurance up with that. So and how can we help in that, man? We make it simple. Our thing here is, first of all, contact our office. By giving us a call, having one of our insurance guides. Just kind of find out what worries you at night, what you got that you need covered. And then our guides take that information after they get to know what keeps you up at night. And then they go to market and they go to all the carriers and find out what the best options are, what your home and auto needs are and any other toys that you may have, life insurance. Yeah. And they come back with the best options. And then they give their consultative approach to it and just say, man, here's the two options or 3, 1, whatever, and say, here's the coverages. Here's some things that you may want to consider. Some things that you may want to take off that you may not need because you don't need to buy insurance if you don't need that coverage.
Yeah.
So they sit down with you and do that. And then if everything looks good, man, they're going to implement everything for you. We got an awesome team here that throughout the year, if you need servicing issues, just call this office and everybody's going to jump in and help. And then again, every year we're going to sit down and say, hey, what's changed and, what's changed on your current policies, what's changed in your household and what do we need to update? And hey, if we need to make a move, our goal is not to move people around from carrier to carrier because in the long run, that's not going to be the best thing for them. But we want to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck and the value's there out of it. Not the cheapest, but the best value for them. So, and the best carrier that's going to be behind it. So
nice.
Yep.
Man, some good stuff already. I mean, we're making great time here. I think it's great. This is honestly a decent kind of length that people can really sit and take all this in, just get a real quick understanding of what is going on, why insurance premiums have changed, why Oracle is going to be the best option out of any of them in the state here, and why it's just making a lot of sense for people to at least have their rates checked up on. That's what we talked about at the meeting even yesterday, right? Is hey, it's not bad just to ask people for some of our guides, as we like to call them, just to say, hey, I can check on that for you. It doesn't mean something does get changed, but things are so rapidly moving and becoming so much more expensive that it isn't a bad idea to at least get it checked up on, right? And see if there's someone else that can cover you just the same, if not better, for the same price, if not cheaper, right? Anything else that you kind of want to wrap with? Because, man, we've made good time here, to be honest.
Like, this is fun,
it's honestly great, but anything else that you want to add or...
I'll say to that point that you just said, hey, if you just want to check, Carl here, one of our guides here in the office, yesterday he was telling the story of had some friends come in with another carrier right now. And, he sat down with them and said, they've been with this carrier a long time. They got nothing against this carrier, but they're just like, hey, they just want to check, make sure they're in a good spot. Carl sent them on their way, said, hey, you're in a good spot, but hey, call your agent and update, like we were saying, like some of those coverages that haven't been updated in 20, 30 years. He just made some recommendations for them to bump their family liability coverage from 100,000 to 500,000. So 5 times it. And so they went back to the agents like, hey, Carl, thanks for the recommendation, man. That only cost us $16 to increase that.
Wow.
So, he did the right thing. Say, hey, you're in a good spot. But here's some things you may just want to change. And, Carl will follow up with them every year and keep checking on them. But, our goals, we're here to take care of people, not just to sell policies. That's why we're guides and not agents. We're just here to guide them to the best options. So,
man,
pretty simple.
So good, man. Will, thanks for sitting down and just kind of kicking us off. Like we said, I mean, we're going to keep developing this and have other guests on, different people with myself, different people with you, hopefully get, a couple interviews done with some of the people that work here and just talk to them about why they love Oracle Insurance or some of our customers that are really happy with what's going on. But other than that, man, we just knocked it out of the park for the first time. So absolutely fantastic, man. But thanks so much for sitting down and we'll keep rocking and rolling. So it's the Oracle Insurance Podcast and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Bye.